When I was in middle school, I had a teacher who I didn't really pay attention to her because I was one of those kind of kids when I was in school. I didn't really think much about the people around me. I was very focused on, getting my education and that's it, which in retrospect, that's a very narrow way to look at things. But I was a kid and my parents was teaching me that you don't go to school for other people, you go to school to get an education. So don't let yourself get caught up in what people around you are doing. Now I know that that's like a very minor way to teach a person to focus on going to school. But I didn't really get on here to talk about that. I wanted to talk about this. I had a teacher who I never quite paid attention to, but she was kind of snappy. And oftentimes she treats me very nicely because I always did my homework. I always did what I was supposed to do because, again, anytime there was an issue with me, my parents, they never thought about what other people were doing or what my teacher might have said to me to make me behave a certain way. Their whole thing was, you're at school to have an education. So that's what I did. A lot of times kids got into it with this particular teacher. And I mostly didn't because I did what I was supposed to do. And that was it. And if she did snap at me, I wouldn't recognize it because, again, I ain't go to school for her. Now, fast forward, I graduated high school. And boy, do I hate Facebook. Lo and behold, what's in my friend request? This same teacher. And she told me I was like one of the best students she ever had in her entire career. And I just took it as flattery because I was pretty sure that I was denying at best. And maybe that's what she liked. Maybe that's what she wanted out of a kid. But I was like, cool, okay, whatever. Fast forward some years later. I don't know how the conversation came about. We talked about me learning that I couldn't have children. And I was devastated when I first learned I couldn't have kids. I was very sad. And she told me that I should see that as a blessing because kids are disgusting. And I was like, whoa, you're a school teacher, middle school to be precise. I didn't know you thought kids were disgusting. And she goes, yeah, they're gross. They're very dirty. You're a very neat person. So think of this as a blessing. Needless to say, I was disturbed. I'm going to say this. My ideal teacher, I have a criteria. If I could have the perfect teacher, she will always be a she. She will be the following. Number one, born a woman. Number two, married. She has to be married. Number three, I can waver on this a little, but she has to either have biological children or at least desire to have biological children or at least not be able to have biological children. Now, these are just my personal desires of a teacher. And I'm going to tell you why. I prefer a woman because women are, they're more nurturing just by nature. They are. I don't want my children to be left with, and I'm saying while they're small, left with a guy because, guys are, they're just different. I'm going to just put it that way. Number two, her being married. My children are being raised in a married family structure. And I believe that teachers aren't just teaching a subject, but they're also conditioning children to think of how their private and social lives should be. And I would love for that kind of influence to come from a woman who is committed to a man. Oh, yeah, I have to say this married to a man. I prefer my born a woman teacher to be married to a man who was born a man. And I just don't want my kids to be exposed to all the different cheat codes in life. That's all. Now for the other teachers, they're single or they have an alternative lifestyle. Of course my kids are gonna cross paths cross paths with these people. I'm just talking about what I prefer. And this teacher that I had that said children were filthy, the reason why she made me click to this was because she's never married. She never had children. Now, I know there are people who don't have kids who have very strong opinions about parenting. I don't understand that. I don't understand people who don't have kids and have very strong opinions about parenting because it's like, yo, that clock hasn't started for you yet. Like, have an opinion, but the way that people who don't have kids pass judgment or how they talk down about kids or how they've been raised, I think that's a little bizarre. Because me having not had kids until I was in my 30s, for the first end of my life, I didn't think about how people were raising their kids and stuff like that. So I didn't have any. I don't know. Now that I have them, I'm like, well, there are certain nuances you will never know unless you have a child. For example, let's go back to kids being filthy. I have two kids, two toddlers, and now they're walking around. They're tall enough to reach stuff, and they pick up stuff all the time. And, they get drinks in their sippy cups. Sometimes they shake their sippy cups. Juice get everywhere. Water. I give them mostly water. Water is easier to clean up, and it's also easier to clean out their system. So they can go to the bathroom regularly and stuff like that. But see, I've had time because, like I said, I didn't start having my kids until I was in my 30s. So I know how important it is for kids to be hydrated. I know how you got to continuously wipe their face, wipe their mouth, because they're constantly doing things, right? So, another thing is when they get pockets, they put stuff in their pockets. They really do. Like, my son was walking around. I didn't know he had a chicken nugget in his pocket until I was doing laundry. And I was just like, what is this thing in his pocket? He had a whole chicken nugget in there. So now I know, like, you got to check their pockets. Every little, when I go to clean their car seats, I take the car seat apart, I vacuum, I wipe it down. It's a lot of people who've had car seats for years, never took it apart once, never cleaned it once. And most times it's because, number one, they're always in a hurry. Number two, nobody ever taught them, hey, this is how you take a car seat apart. It's things like that as a parent that you don't know. And to have this teacher that doesn't have one child, ain't never been married, ain't never had to deal with no man consistently in her private life, don't understand anything about a family structure at all, I think there's something wrong with that.